This is another experiment of mine, and if you like it and feel it makes sense, I will produce more of these later. It's me actually reading a German text, the first chapter of my easy reader, Die Tote Frau im Garten. But the way I would read it if I learned a new language. I'm highly analytical, so I'm analyzing the sentences step by step. You could follow this even if you're a total beginner of German and possibly don't know any word yet. That would be also interesting feedback to get from you. But even if you're an advanced learner on B2 level or C1 level, maybe you should give it a try and see whether you can still learn something from the way I perceive and I analyze language. So give it a try and let me know how this worked for you. Now enjoy. It takes a bit longer, but you can take breaks. Yeah, no one forces you to go through this in one piece. Thank you for your attention. Take care. Die Sonne scheint. When you hear the sentence, you hear scheint at the end. A good advice is to cut off the last letter of a word, and very often what is left is what we call the stem, or you might call it the root. So shine. And what does the word shine remind you of? Which English word comes to your mind when you hear the German word shine? Right, in this case it's identical, so to shine. Die, you might have heard of that, is a German article. We have der, das, die, dem, des, and den. So the something shines. And what is the first association with shining? Right, it's the sun. And if you cut off the last two letters of sun, you even get something that looks very similar. It looks like the sun, the male descendant, but it's close enough to S-U-N, so you figure that out with scheint. Es ist ein schöner Tag. Whenever you are thinking about where to start, the first and best way or approach is to figure out what is happening. And for that you need what we call a verb. A verb is the action word of a sentence, so what is happening. In this case it is ist. Again, cut off the last letter and you're left with is, which is exactly what it means. It is. So ist is to be in the form of it is. Now I gave away the s already, which means it. So it is. We are left with ein schöner Tag. Ein is another article. Like in English, you have the and a. In German, we have der, das, die, and ein, eine, einen, and others. So it is a. Schön is what we call an adjective. It's describing another word more precisely, which means it's mostly redundant, at least to get the main idea of a sentence. So let's ignore this for now. Tag is the word we look at. Well, it might not resemble anything you know yet, but I would like to present a pattern to you that is very common. Not 100% reliable, but very common. A T in German, you might try to replace it with a D. Then you have dark, that doesn't do much yet. And a second pattern that is introduced here is the G. If you cut off the scalp of the G, what you're left with is a Y. So we have D-A-Y, day. So it is a day. And if the sun is shining, what kind of day do we have? Right, it's a nice day, beautiful day. Schön means beautiful or nice. And this way, context helps you to figure out words and learn them in a natural way. This shift from T to D, from a German point of view, or from D to D, from my point of view, you can find in other words as well. For example, Bett in German means what in English? Bed, the place you sleep in, hopefully. Another word would be dollar in English. In German, there is a word, an old currency unit, very old, not used nowadays, called Thaler. And you see the similarity. Or we have Wort. which in your language is word. So give this a try. It's really helpful to guess the meaning of words. And the context will prove that your assumption is right or doesn't make any sense. Wie jeden Montag kommt der Gärtner Klaus Blumfeld zu dem großen alten Haus am Ende der Stadt. Wow, this is a long sentence. So let's take it easy and try to figure out what is happening. And the main question you have to ask yourself is who is doing what? And you start with the doing, what's happening. So you might figure out that kommt reminds you of a word that you know. If you take out the T at the end, you have come. Pronounce it a little bit in English, come. So someone is coming. If you take a look at the word in front of kommt, and you recognize there is Tag, which we have just figured out is day, and put the mon in front of it, so it's a Monday. So someone comes on a Monday. Now where do I find this someone? In most cases, almost all the cases, but there's exceptions, as you will see in a minute, the person doing the action comes either right in front of the verb or right after it. So as in front of the verb is only the day, Monday, most likely the doer, the subject as we call it in grammar, is coming after kommt. And what do we have here? We have der Gärtner. And again we can apply the pattern, T turns into D, pronounce it kind of English, gardener. And you have the gardener. Behind the gardener there's Klaus Blumfeld. You might have heard the name Klaus. That's one of the most typical German names of old times. So there's a gardener called Klaus, and Blumfeld is his family name. In this case, the family name is very picturesque. Blum means a flower from blooming, and Feld, just add an I to it, it's a field, so it's a field of flowers. So it's a very colorful name. So we have the gardener Klaus Blumfeld, who comes on a Monday, most likely. And the next logical question would be, where to does he come, or where does he come? And there we have the next element in the sentence, zu dem großen alten Haus. House hopefully doesn't need much explanation. It is what it sounds like. So he comes to the house. Großen and alten are again adjectives describing house a bit more closely. They are not really necessary to get the main idea. Yeah, of course you want to know these and I will help you. But in general, there's a gardener coming to a house. That is almost 99% of the information. Groß means tall or big, so maybe you can say big things are really gross. Of course, that is just a fantasy and a memory link, nothing real. And alt, again, have a T, so I try my D trick. Ald, change the A to another vowel, old. Yeah, and you notice that I cut off the endings en in each case, and I was left with the root. So a logical follow-up question would be, okay, where is this house? And the answer comes right away, am Ende der Stadt. I don't care for am for now. I take a look at Ende, cut off the E, the last letter, and I have end, which is exactly what it means, the end. So most likely at the end of something. And here I have the meaning of at the. Am is actually a contraction of an dem, and here you recognize, oh, there is the again, and an means at in most cases. So am Ende, at the end, der Stadt, at the end of something. So der here means of the what? Stadt might remind you of state or resemble state, which is partly true because it means city, and cities a few thousand years ago were like little states. We even have 3 state cities in Germany. Berlin, Bremen, and Hamburg are so-called Stadtstaaten, city-states. So there is a gardener who comes to the big old house at the end of the city, like on Mondays, And we haven't translated wie jeden. You don't really have to worry about it, but it means like every. So like every Monday comes the gardener Klaus Blumfeld. Zwar wohnt hier seit Jahren kein Mensch mehr. I would like to skip this sentence because it messes up all my beautiful explanations of above, and it is not relevant for the understanding of the story at this point. I give you the translation. Although lives here since years, not a human being anymore. So since years there's no one living here, or although there's no one living here for many years now. So you see the little translation gives away the German sentence structure, but don't bother about this sentence, yeah? Come back later. The only thing that I would possibly mention here is the similarity between here and here, which it actually means, and mehr and more. Yeah, kein Mensch mehr, no human being anymore. The verb here is found where many verbs are found, or most verbs, on position 2. That does not always mean the second word, but in this case it is. So wohnt, wohn, might remind you of the word Wohnung, if you have ever heard that. Wohnung means flat. So wohnt is the action you do in a flat or with a flat. And the main action that flats are created for is to live in it. So wohnen means to live. Aber Blumfelds Job ist es, den Garten zu machen. Here I notice there's two verbs, ist and zu machen. The zu tells me that the ist doesn't really belong to its partner machen. So I have a comma as well in the middle. All those clues tell me I have two sentences. So the first sentence is, aber Blumfelds Job ist es. You know ist es? It means is it. Turn it around, you have it is Blumfeld's job. And then the second sentence will tell us what is Blumfeld's job. The aber in the beginning is not really relevant, as you see, because you already understood. It means but. So but Blumfeld's job it is, or it's Blumfeld's job, den Garten zu machen. Den Garten, you remember Gärtner, which was the gardener. So Garten, exchange the T again, the garden. Zu means to. So his job it is to the garden. So what do you do with the garden? You take care of it. The Germans say we make the garden, machen and make. If you take off the en, you are left with mach and the ch. If you pronounce it with a strong English accent, you will automatically turn into a k, mach. Yeah, like when people try to say ich, they often say ich. So this is a natural transition. The k you can replace every now and then with ch, and you will find possibly an English resembling, a word resembling an English word. So his job is to do the garden, or to make the garden, und Dinge zu reparieren. Und means and. It's hopefully obvious. So, zu reparieren, to repair. And please notice the similarity between reparier and repair. Yeah. Actually, what we did, we just cut out the middle R. And it's the same word. In French, you have réparer, maybe that's even closer to that. So he shall repair something, and what shall he repair if you don't know it? So Dinge, replace the T again, so you have Ting. Ting, what Ting? So thing, and to repair thing. Thing doesn't work, so it's things. Dinge means things. So the E is a plural. By the way, 50% of the German plural is or takes an E. So his job it is to do the garden and to repair things. Das alte Haus soll in Ordnung bleiben. The old house should be obvious by now. Soll is not that clear. But the S and the double L, if we look at that and replace the middle, you see a similarity to shall. The old house shall. In Ordnung, in is in most of the time. Ordnung, if you cut off the ending and are a bit more radical, you're left with ord. And what word could you create with ord in English? Which word with ord would come to your mind? Right, it's order. So the old house shall in order, shall in order in English structure. So what is the, well, bleiben means to remain or to stay. I don't have much help here. This is one of the few words you have to learn on your own. So the old house shall stay in order or shall remain in order. That's why he's making the garden and repairing the things. Es ist eine eigene kleine Welt ohne Menschen. It is, and eine means a, so it is a. So what is it? Let's figure that out. Eigene kleine are adjectives again, which you might recognize by the e ending, especially because they are like separated by a comma and they have the same ending. They are not relevant. So it is a something something Welt. Exchange the T with a D and experiment a little bit with the vowels. So we have world. Sorry if I pronounce that slowly, it's a bit off key, but world. So it is a world. Yeah, what a statement. It is a word. So he's obviously, they are obviously talking about that house with the garden. So it's a world ohne Menschen. Ohne Menschen must describe this word a bit clearer or more specifically. For ohne, I only have a mnemonic for you. Imagine a horse without an owner. Owner sounds a bit like ohne, and without is its meaning. So without Menschen. Don't mention the human beings, or take a look at Menschen, min. So all men are equal. This min doesn't mean all masculine beings. It also includes women and children and other human beings. So without human beings. It is a word without human beings. Eigene, just to satisfy your desire for knowledge, means own. It's an own world without human beings. And klein, well, Calvin Klein underwear is too small for Germans. Yeah, it's really small. It's like tiny. Germans' asses are so big. That they cannot wear Calvin Klein. So klein means small. It's an own small world without human beings. Der Gärtner mag es, hier zu sein. We have a comma again, and that means we have two sentences. Let's take a look at the beginning. Der Gärtner mag es. The gardener, you should recognize by now, the gardener, something, it. Mag, I have a mnemonic for you. I like mugs. Mag sounds a bit like mug, to drink from. So I like mugs. So mag means to like. It comes from mögen, but let's not go that deep now. So the gardener likes it. So now the second sentence tells us what he likes. Hier zu sein. Here is obvious, here. To what? Sein is a bit tricky because sein could mean to be or his, and it comes in several forms. But he likes it to be his doesn't make sense, so this must be he likes it here to be, he likes it to be here. Dann ist er ein Teil dieser kleinen Welt. Again, let's focus on what's happening. That is, again, ist, something is. And who is? Der. Sorry, I'm preceding. Er ist. If you don't know er yet, you might know the article der, that's why I said it by accident. Der contains er, so it must be something masculine. Please note that masculine doesn't necessarily mean biologically masculine, but in this case it is indeed a male person, and it's of course referring to the gardener, because it's a man in this case. So, dann ist he a Teil dieser small world. Let's not worry about dann. So, he is something, small word. Dieser, replace the D with a T or T's, TH, this, these or this, depending on the following words. Welt is a singular word, so it's this world. So then he is a something of this world, of this small world. The Teil means part, and I have a mnemonic for you. Like, I have a lot of tiles at home, like bathroom tiles, and whenever I'm angry, I slash them, I hammer them into little tiny parts. Yeah, so my bathroom tiles are always in many parts. I have an unlimited supply. So he is a part of this small world. Now, dann. You might be tempted to, of course, replace the D with a T or TH, but you might come up with then, which is not correct. Dann actually means then with an E. And then might be confusing for you. So I have a little aid for you. Then with an A in German means most often als. And what they have in common is the A. So remember that the then with an A actually means als. So that the only possible translation for dann is then with an E. So then he is a part of this small world. And then means whenever he is in that garden. Bevor Blumfeld in den Garten geht. The only unknown word to you is geht, and it is starting with the same letter as the English translation, to go, goes. So before Blumfeld in the garden goes, into the garden goes. In can be in or into. Before is just written with a V in German instead of an F. That shouldn't cause you much trouble. But you might notice one thing. Geht is at the very end, before Blumfeld in the garden goes, or into the garden goes. I can just tease you a little bit here, give you a teaser. It is before that pushes verbs to the end, not only geht. Before is a pusher, is a mean, evil pusher, and it doesn't like verbs. He's one of a few that you will get to know throughout this course. This was the first half of a longer sentence. The second half is sieht immer erst in dem Haus nach. Starting with sieht is a bit unusual for you possibly. That is because we started with before earlier. Don't worry about it. To make your understanding a bit easier, turn it around. Just put the in front of it, and then you have sieht immer erst in dem Haus nach. Sieht, if you cut off the ending and are a bit creative, comes from sehen, and sehen gives away that it means to see. Yeah, sehen contains two e's, like to see. So he sees immer erst in the house, and then we have nach. I was a bit quick when I said sehen means to see. Sometimes German verbs are taken apart, and the crazy thing is that when they're taken apart, they're taken completely apart. That means that both parts are as far from each other as they can be, like in this case. So the verb is actually not sehen, it is nachsehen, which means to check. Maybe one could use to look after, and then you have a little bit, coherence here. So he looks after, or he checks in the house. So he checks something, and what he checks comes in the next sentence. But we have two more words to cover here. Erst might be easy to remember because it contains all the letters of the English translation. with a slight change. The E changes to I. So erst means first. You see the similarities? And immer, I have not much to add here. Immer means always. Immer is always written with 2M. Maybe this little sentence helps you to remember it. So before he goes into the garden, he always first looks or checks in the house. Now what does he check? Next sentence. Ob es etwas zu tun gibt. One thing you need to notice here is es gibt. Geben, the B and the V is another pattern that very often occurs. If you replace the B with a V, you get give. And this is what gibt means. Or geben, to give. So es gibt literally means it gives, but it does possibly not make much sense to you. So es gibt means there is or there are. So he checks something, there is zu tun, to do, tun and do. If you cut off the N, you actually have the same word, to, do. So what's left is etwas, which means something. Sometimes you only have was, but here we have etwas, something. And the only thing left is ob. Can you figure out what ob means? So he checks in the house, there is something to do. What would you put here? Right, it's weather. And please, you might have come up with if. I strongly suggest you always translate ob with weather and only weather, because if would confuse you later on. So he always checks in the house whether there's something to do. Geht zur Tür und gefriert zu Eis. Und means we have two sentences. Und separates two sentences. Geht zur Tür. He goes to. By the way, don't get irritated by zur or later zum. You see the zu in this case? It means to. The R we figure out in a minute. So he goes to Tür. Tür, replace the D, the T with a D. You have Tür, door. He goes to door. And of course you would say to the door. And there's your answer what the R means. He goes to the door. Geht zur Tür. Zur is a contraction of zu der. Und gefriert zu Eis. So ice is exactly what it sounds like. Ice, like in ice cream or water ice. So to ice, something happens with him to ice. So you can turn into ice, right? But let's take a look at gefriert. If you cut off the ending and the GE, which very often, we can just separate a little bit, and we are left with frier. And if you combine frier, free, and somehow let it slide into ice, freeze, freeze. So he freezes to ice. Gefrieren means to freeze. Eine alte Frau liegt im Flur. Well, an old woman, Frau means woman, liegt im Flur. So what does the old woman do? She liegt. And here we have to cut off the T and the G to make a little bit of sense. And then you have a word lie, but not in the sense of not telling the truth, rather lying on the floor, or lying in bed. So an old woman lies im Flur. Im is the same as in. Actually, it's a contraction of in dem, and again you have an article hidden here. In the something. So im and in for you mean in or into. Flur is not what it seems like. Flur sounds like floor, which in this case is true, because you will figure out soon that she's in a state where she has to lie on the floor. But Flur means corridor in German. And the way you can associate that is by imagining that the corridor has a really, really dirty floor. Yeah? Tot. Replace the two T's with two D's and put one and one together. There's an old woman lying on or in the corridor. Most likely she is dead. In einem Ring aus Dreck und Matsch. In a ring. And a ring is a round thing. Usually you put on your ring, on your finger. If it's round, it's like a circle. So Ring means circle in German. Aus means out or out of. So it's a ring out of, made out of, Dreck und Matsch. Dreck means dirt, and the only things those two words have in common is the D and the R, and the E and the I. Der and Dre. This is what they have in common. Dreck und Matsch. Cutting off the SCH, I'm left with Matt. And if I speak that softly, by exchanging the T with the D, I have mud. Yeah? In English, you use a U to express that sound. In German, we have a M-A-T, much. So she's lying in a ring made of, consisting of dirt and mud. This was it. I hope you could follow my explanations and the visuals, and let me know what you think about it. If you think that benefits you well, that you learn from this, I will create more of these. It's an experiment, as many things we do. But I could imagine that this will teach you to read more precisely and more analytically, because if you are able to analyze sentences, you need to rely less on vocabulary, which means you have more, make better use of your intelligence, yeah, and not only on your memory. Because memory is something that requires a lot of energy, but intelligence makes you fast and fluent and also more independent. So please share your thoughts with us, and I'm happy to do more of these. Thank you.